Welcome to the world of exploration. Welcome to the world of learning. Let's start exploring. Let's start learning. This is your very own educator, teacher, philosopher, guide, mentor, friend, preacher, guru, one and all. And this is the one-stop destination wherein we all gonna learn together, grow together, and blossom together, right? So in today's session, I would be taking up Mother's Day, which is written by a profound writer, J.B. Presley, and he has an exquisite manner woven this play. Um, you know, it has been intricately woven by J.B. Priestley, who is the playwright. All right, the following play, it's a humorous portrayal of the status of a mother in a family unit. So family functions as a unit over here, so we are talking about that. And let's read on basically to see how Mrs. Pearson's family reacts when she tries to stand up for her own rights. So we are gonna study about the rights. We're going to study about um, the rights that women or a mother should be having, right? So let's read on how so Mrs. Pearson being the central figure, being the backbone of the um family over here, when she would stand up for her rights, when she will become firm, and when she will learn how to put her foot down, right? Then um how the family members would react. Would it be a positive one? Would it be a negative one? Would it be a mixture of both the emotions, like an amalgamation or a potpourri of both? Or how what kind of reactions would be coming from which all members of the family, right? So, for example, now we will be having a look at the characters. So, we have Mrs. Annie Pearson, who's the central figure in this play, around which the entire play revolves. Then we have George Pearson. Obviously, we get the hint that we are talking about Pearson family. So, George Pearson would be the husband of Mrs. Pearson, right? And we have Mrs. Pearson, Annie Pearson. Annie Pearson is the full name. Annie is the full name. Uh, Otherwise, we would be referring to her as Mrs. Pearson, right? So you should understand who is Mrs. Pearson. Mrs. Annie Pearson is who we are referring to. Then we have George Pearson, who is her husband. Then we have Doris Pearson. So obviously, Doris, uh, as I have mentioned in my previous lecture as well, that how Doris Pearson is the daughter and Cyril Pearson is the son, right? Right. So now we will be having Doris Pearson, who is the daughter of Mrs. Annie Pearson and Mrs. George Pearson, and we have Cyril Pearson, and we have Mrs. Fitzgerald. Now, Mrs. Fitzgerald is not a part of this particular family unit, but she is a friend, a very, very, very good friend of Mrs. Pearson, who has a totally contrasting personality, who is very firm, very authoritative, very dominating, very modern, and who basically symbolizes modernity, wherein women know their rights and they know how to stand for themselves and they know how to create boundaries. They know um uh, how and how should one put the other person's right. So she knows how to make people straight. She knows how to put them straight in their position. She knows how to show them the mirror. She knows them uh she knows how to make them realize where do they stand, right? And make and draw the boundaries that, okay, this is the point. After this, I'm not gonna listen, right? So she's that sort of a woman. We also get to see that how she's older, she's fat, and her physical description. So physical description of Mrs. Pearson and Mrs. Fitzgerald has been given, along with the other characters. Obviously, you will be in this playwright has delineated the physical description, the physical attributes, the traits, um, appearance, as well as the symbols for which they stand for, right? So the action takes place in the living room of the Pearson's house in a London suburb, right? So we are basically talking about the living room. Now, living room is the focal point, right? Living room is the central point. Again, like we are talking about Mrs. Pearson, who acts as the central figure, who acts as a pivotal figure in the play, who ideally should be placed at the pedestal, and who ideally should be placed uh, at the pedestal with uh whom everybody respects, and who obviously deserves that dignity, who deserves that because she is carrying so many responsibilities. She is a homemaker, she's a housewife, but that doesn't mean that nobody respects. It should be up to the women. The choice should be up to the choice should be that women should be allowed to choose whether they want to work or whether they don't want, or whether they want to balance it out. But over here, we get to see that women work so hard. They have so much of work, but still, sometimes, most of the times, especially in this place, we get to see how the husband is, not grateful, is not at all having the attitude of gratitude. He is taking her for granted. He's the son and the daughter, they also take her for a ride. So they do not respect her. They do not uh you know pay heed to her just because of her soft, sweet, tender, timid nature. Whereas Mrs. Fitzgerald has been delineated as being having sinister personality, which means evil-like personality. But over here, we're not referring. See, in English, in English, Hindi, in any language, we do have one word with several meanings, right? So, with several adaptations. So over here, it does not mean evil, having evil like qualities or characteristics, but it does refer to being bold, being brave, right? So one should be bold, one should be brave. So be bold, be brave, right? So she is that sort of a personality who knows how to set people right. Okay. Now, and we were talking about the living room. So the entire action is taking place in the living room, because the living room is where most of the times you meet people, right? Wherein you meet your relatives, wherein you meet your um uh, friends, where you meet anybody who's coming at your home. So might be Diwali time, might be uh anytime. So that is the place where you sit, right? So most of the time the action takes place in the living room. So that's why it might be that playwright has chosen living room as as a central place. Apart from that, it is the center of the home. So it is the center, being the center of the home, being wherein all the energies accumulate. He the playwright, he might have chosen that, right? Who is J.B. Priestley. Now, uh, we get to see the time being, it's the present. So the present time has been used over here. So now, so time has also been mentioned. Keep that in mind. And then we have been given scene, right? So the living room of the Pearson's family, afternoon. Uh, it is a it is a comfortably furnished. Let me just make it. Yeah. So the living room of the Pearson's family, afternoon, it is a comfortably furnished, much lived in room in a small suburban semi-detached villa. If necessary, only one door needs to be used, but it is easier with two. One up left leading to the front door and the stairs, and the other in the right wall leading to the kitchen and the back door. There can be a muslin covered window in the left wall and possibly one in the right wall. Uh, uh, Two. The fireplace is assumed to be in the fourth wall. There is a settee at right, an armchair down left, and one down right. A small table with two chairs on either side of it stands at the center, right? So now the scene is basically herein we are being told about the stage directions, that how you're supposed to be performing on the stage. So for example, I most of the times I tell my students, tell my learners to enact this play because because the play is always meant to be enacted on the stage. So majorly I'm these characters, you can choose up you can select students and you can choose who you want to be, or you can, I can, as a teacher, as a facilitator, can choose the students who would be enacting those particular roles, who are suitable for those particular roles, right? For that, for those particular roles, not rules. Yeah. So the now the so whenever any performance happens, you might have noticed, you might have observed that curtain rises, right? And whenever any performance ends, then curtain falls, right? So here also the living room of the Pearson family, and what part of day is it? It is afternoon. So we are talking about afternoon, and we are talking about the living room of the Pearson family. Keep that in mind. It is a comfortably well furnished, much lived in a room. So it is very, very comfortable and much furnished and much lived room. It is well furnished too. Uh, in a small suburban semi-detached villa. That means there are two villas which are, um, which are sharing a single wall, and they are sharing that wall, and they have two doors. So you might also have come across people who might be having villas having two doors. One would be the main one would be the main door from which the main people enter, and the other one would be for the usage of other things, right? Might not be frequently used. So there are two doors. um so these are basically the uh, scene, how the scene has to be enacted, right? And small table should be there with two chairs on either side of stands at the center. So there should be a table and two chairs opposite to each other, right? The fireplace is assumed to be in the fourth wall, and how the fireplace is assumed to be on the fourth wall. So that is the case. Then we move on to when the curtain rises. It is an afternoon in early autumn. Again, please make sure that you are noticing the months, you are noticing the daytime. So it's afternoon again, and we are observing that it is autumn. Which season is it? Which season is it? It is autumn season, right? So and the stage can be well lit. So the stage, always make sure that the stage is well lit, right? That means it is well lighted, right? Natural, it could be natural light, it could be artificial light, but light, it should be well lit, right? Mrs. Pearson at right and Mrs. Fitzgerald at left, and Mrs. Pearson has to be on the right side whenever you are enacting this play, and Mrs. Fitzgerald has to be on the left side. They are sitting opposite each other, so this could even mean that right side has to be always right, they follow the righteous path always. They do not like to uh they because of their pampering, or because they love too much, they shower too much of love on their husband or on their children, according to their norms, according to what they feel that they love them so much, that they pamper them so much, that they go out of hand. So children also go out of hand, and it is not good for anyone. So it is not doing good for any one, neither for them, it is actually ruining them. And it is not only ruining their lives, but it is also ruining her own life as well. Because in the future, what will happen if they are treating their mother like that? Right now, see, the way the father perceives the mother, the way the father looks at the mother, in the same way it acts as a kind of a mirror. The children will look at the mother in the same way. So children, most of the times when you ask children, like, right, for example, in one of the schools, um when I asked this question, that who is your role model, they just completely, answer back that my dad is my role model, my dad is my role model, or nobody. So it is just, that means you have, you know they develop that the two personalities are totally, different. And how are they different? Dad is just because dad is the earning member, just because the father is the earning member, they think that he's the one who is doing the work, and the mother is just sitting idly at home. She's not doing any work. Her work is not counted, even in economics. When I was there, when I was in ninth or 10th, in economics, we had our concept wherein, it was suggested that, women who who cook food, who make food, or who are, doing any sort of work, whether it be dusting, whether it be any work, household work, their work should also be counted, in the economy, because they are also contributing. And they are contributing in the house. Ultimately it would lead to contribution in the economy as well, but their contribution is not counted, and therefore they are not paid. And because they are not paid, they are not, respected. They're not given the kind of respect that they actually deserve. But we as a society do not see that women and mothers, especially talking about mothers, they're working 24/7. They're working all the 7 days. Now students, now I've also come across this answer that, ma'am, we as children also work. We have so much of work, that we are working. We also are toiling hard. That means working hard. Now children cannot, perceive or even, think of that what their mothers are doing, or the what women are doing, how much work are they doing. Even, and nowadays the scenario has completely changed. Nowadays, especially speaking, nowadays women are doing both the tasks simultaneously. They are actually multitasking. They're actually managing both the arenas, both the areas, both the things. It, whether it be household work or it be the professional life, the work life, they are managing both. But still the society is the same. It's, when it comes to a man, when it comes to a father, children would automatically give respect to the father, rather than giving that respect or the kind of dignity or the kind of, although responsibilities are same, but in not even same, because, at the end of the day, who is working 24/7, who is toiling hard, who is minting money, who is making money, who is working in the kitchen? It's the mother, right? It's not always the father. Sometimes, yes, the father might be helping, but not always. It's just once or twice, but otherwise it's the mother who is doing the work, right? So clear. So all right. So in and the stage can be well lit. Mrs. Pearson at right and Mrs. Fitzgerald at left. So that means it might also be that Mrs. Fitzgerald is placed at left because she wants to change the norms of the society, and she feels, because she's very dominant figure, and she's very dominating and authoritative too. She knows how to set people right. She knows how to figure out ways, and she knows how to open any sort of conversation and to close any sort of conversation. She is also kind, but we can also say that when women try to express their opinions, For example, when any woman is trying to express her thoughts or perceptions, she is being labeled as Batamiz, right? In Indian society as well, and otherwise too. They had the concept of witches and all now, witches and all these things. So when you are that might be the reason that why sinister like personality has been coined, for uh, uh, has been given to or attributed to Mrs. Fitzgerald, right? So otherwise it has negative connotation, but here in this play, she stands for modernity. She is the one who is having a very, very bold and authoritative personality. Then we have um each other at the small table on which are two teacups and saucers, and the cards with which Mrs. Fitzgerald has been telling Mrs. Pearson's fortune. Now, this you need to highlight. This is again very, very important. Okay, I have not highlighted. All right, doesn't matter. You know what I have already been talking about, so you should be able to. This is your job now to um uh to basically comment in the comment section below that which all lines are important ones. So this way, this would be your revision too, and yeah, this would be your revision too, and you can even note it down in your notebook. But it's better first to comment in the comment section below and then to uh revise, right? So Mrs. Fitzgerald has been telling Mrs. Pearson's fortune. So basically, through this, what do we get to know? We get to know that she is a fortune teller, right? Who? Mrs. Fitzgerald is a fortune teller, and she is telling Mrs. Pearson her fortune. Whose fortune? Mrs. Pearson's fortune. She is basically, she can predict the future. She is able to predict the future. For example, nowadays, after lockdown also, we get to see that how even on internet, there are various tarot readers. So there are various there are many tarot card readers who claim to be claim to read your future, who claim to read the card through the future through the cards. But they might not, then they are not real, right? Do not fall into that trap. But herein we are talking about that how she was a real fortune teller, and she could predict, and she not only predict the future, but she says something very, very different and astonishing that we will be able to, that we all can relate to, and we all should be able to decipher and implement it in our lives, right? So what is that? So we would be coming to it, right? When I'll be directing it to you, when I'll be basically directing it, that what does that mean, right? So Mrs. Pearson is a pleasant. Herein the description has been given of Mrs. Pearson. She is a pleasant but worried looking woman in her 40s. So she is in her 40s, and she's a very, very, very pleasant looking person, very, very pleasant looking woman. But she's worried looking too. So she's pleasant, but at the same time, she's always worried. Why? Because she's, treated as a servant. She's treated as a doormat just because of her soft, tender, um, timid, kind, because she's very kind. She has kind-hearted nature, loving nature, caring nature. Although Mrs. Fitzgerald is also caring, she's also kind-hearted, she's also kind, but she knows till where you have to be kind, right? And what point will trigger what. So Mrs. Fitzgerald is older, as I've mentioned before. She's heavier and a strong, sinister personality. She's smoking. It is important that these two should have a sharply, so whenever you are enacting any play, they should be having sharply contrasting personalities and voices too. Mrs. Pearson, speaking in a light, flurried sort of a tone with a touch of suburban, Cockney perhaps, and Mrs. Fitzgerald with a deep voice, rather Irish, perhaps. So Mrs. Pearson should be speaking in light, flurried sort of a tone with a touch of Cockney, suburban Cockney perhaps, and Mrs. Fitzgerald with a deep voice, rather Irish perhaps, right? And so she has been shown as if she's smoking. Now, smoking, there's a disclaimer from my end that smoking is injurious for your health. Yes, indeed, it is injurious for your health. So I would uh, like to highlight one major thing over here, that smoking is shown as a sign of modernity. No, it's not. It's truly not. It is going to harm your health. It is damn injurious for your health. If you want to be in good health, if you want yourself to succeed in life, if you want yourself to grow, you should not smoke or drink, not develop any sort of bad habit, right? Herein, she is shown, who, Mrs. Fitzgerald, is shown to be smoking. Why? Because smoking in that era, in those times, was was a kind of a part of being modern, of basically breaking the shackles, of merging out from the shackles of patriarchy, from the shackles of a male dominated society, wherein males were, put at the epicenter and were, shown as if they are superior race. No, it is not like that. Definitely not. But over here, just because in order to make the readers, in order to emphasize over the fact that how she breaks out all the rules, all the norms of the society, how you are supposed to break the norms of the society in order to break the norms which are created by males. Again, let me remind you, in the male dominated society. However, I would also like to point out that it is also, it is also, women are also responsible in that. Women also share equal sort of responsibility. Why? Because women, when they try to pamper too much, when they shower too much of love, children will become spoiled. Be uh, Children will lose out their innocence. They will, they will, for example, in this play, they go out in order to party. They go out in for clubs, wherein they are being mocked, wherein there's a lot of mockery, there is a lot of satire that has been used by the playwright. So you will also get to see that how the playwright has used satire and uh, mockery and irony in this play. But so there are various levels. So on the surface level, this play might appear as a very satirical play, but it is, or because humor has also been used as an instrument. But if you see deeper, from a deeper lens, you will figure it out that it is a very, very, very sensitive play, right? So Mrs. Fitzgerald is basically, it's showing, so you can just make the narrator. So collecting up the cards, like for example, I'm the tarot card reader, just giving you an example, right? So I'm just collecting up the cards, and that's all I can tell you, Mrs. Pearson. So basically, as a very, very good friend, what would you do? If I and you are good friends, in fact, best friends, what will I tell you? I would obviously want something good for you because you are my best friend, and I would like to help you, right? So she was also very, very helpful and a very, very good friend who used to give good advices. So she said, and that's all I can tell you, Mrs. Pearson. Could be a great fortune, could be a bad one. All depends on yourself now. Make up your mind, and there it is. So now, the thing that I was talking about in the over here, that how she's over here. Where was I talking? All right. So the thing that I was talking about, that how she's a fortune teller and what kind of future does she predict, and what kind of advice does she give? So she gives a very very intellectual and a wise advice, right? Wow, wise advice. Good. So wise advice, which is that your it could be your future could be a bad one or can be a good one. It all depends on you. So basically over here we have been told that how we are the writers of our own destiny, we are the architects of our own destiny, we are the writers of our own destiny, we are the authors of our own destiny. So if we choose, you know to be timid, then what will our fortune or destiny be like? And if we choose to be confident, uh to fight for our rights, to be self-reliant, to be uh you know very very uh assertive, for that, how you would be writing your destiny, right? So Mrs. Pearson says, yes. Her reply is, yes, thank you, Mrs. Fitzgerald. I'm much obliged. I'm sure it's wonderful having a real fortune teller living next door. So now she's hinting at, and she's telling the readers that who is she? She's a fortune teller who is living next door. That means Mrs. Fitzgerald and Mrs. Pearson are best friends, are friends, and how Mrs. Fitzgerald is, you know, good at giving advice. So we can say she's an advisor, right? just like that, just saying it just like that. But how she's good at giving advice, and how um it is so wonderful having a real fortune teller living next door. That means she's also her neighbor. That means both are neighbors, right? Secondly, thirdly, right? So did you learn that out east too? Now, the kind of art, so it's basically an art, right? Reading the fortune, or being the fortune teller, or predicting the future, or giving an advice based on that. Have you learned this beautiful, exquisite form of art from East? So this is an art form in itself. Being able to, being decisive, and being able to um, predict, being able to understand, being able to comprehend what is the future like, what will be it like, how and how one should take it into its stride, right? Into one's stride. So did you learn it from East? Now, East stands for the Asian countries, and West stands for the American US, like USA, UK, so on and so forth, right? Obviously, this is the distinction that has been made, the differentiation that has been brought to us by the playwright. All right, so this is the first part of the so this figure you can see. So you can see how uh, this is Mrs. Fitzgerald, and these are the things. This is the table, and how they are sitting. So on the right hand side, it is Mrs. Pearson, and how on the left hand side, this is how on the right hand side you get to see Mrs. Pearson, and how on the left hand side you get to see Mrs. Fitzgerald, and how she is looking pleasant, but she is looking worried, right? As you can see the expression over here, and she's looking so confident in front of Mrs. Pearson. She's very confident. She's smiling. She's smiling. She's having that look, right? And she's having drinking something, right? We will even get to see that how. Okay, yeah, we'll get to that point later. So how this is a table, and both of them are sitting next to each other, right? Opposite to each other. Not opposite, but next to each other, right? Then next page from page number, this is which page? From page number 16, I'll be carrying it forward in my next lecture. So this is it from my side, from my end, and in today's session. So this is Sukriti Yoshiman signing off. Till then, let's all keep learning. Till then, let's all keep growing. Namaste, Jai Shri Krishna, Radhe Radhe. And let's all keep blossoming. See you.